You ever notice how computer literacy is like a very specific generational skill? If you're too old, you missed the boat. Too young, you never even learned how to swim in the first place. You just know that the water is there, and if you get in, you might be able to float a little bit. There's this weird middle group born between the late 80s and the early 2000s who actually understand how computers work, not just using apps. I mean, knowing how a file system works, what RAM does, how to extend your display to multiple screens, or even something as simple as how to Google an error message and not end up on a Yahoo Answers forum from 2009. Many baby boomers still think double-clicking is what you do when you have two separate friend groups. Some don't know how to check their email even when email's been a thing for over 25 years, and almost 100% of people have an email account. You just log in, I don't know. And Gen Alpha treats computers like vending machines. Push a button, get content. If it breaks, you cry. There's an app for everything. You don't really need to know how to edit a video, just use a template. No hate to CapCut users. Some of these edits are pretty cool, but schools are filled with Chromebooks, which is the most basic operating system, so not much room to explore there. But my point still stands. Let's break down the spectrum of computer literacy, starting with the boomers. These are the folks who met computers late in life, usually at work, usually under duress and force of the changing times. Their intro to tech was some beige Windows 95 machine in a conference room with a trainer named Linda who printed out the PowerPoint slides. They didn't grow up with this stuff. It was introduced after they'd already figured out how to live without it. So they'd use computers like a microwave, reluctantly and only when they absolutely had to. They might have took a typing class, but it wasn't about understanding the machine, it was just digitizing whatever paper files their company already had. Computers were a chore, not a useful tool. Now, in contrast that with the millennials and early Gen Z, the lab rats of the early internet, they came up during the golden era of school computer labs. Mavis Beacon, KidPix, Oregon Trail, typing class was mandatory. IT class was a thing, even if it was taught by the gym coach who thought Java was just coffee. They went to computer labs to type up their essays. They may not have had a computer at home, but when they did finally get one, they knew how to work it. The key differences here is that they played with computers, broke them, fixed them, downloaded viruses off LimeWire, customized MySpace with raw HTML and CSS. They didn't even realize that was code. They may not have had computers in their early life, but they were curious and intrigued by the world of computers and what the internet offered. They had to learn file structures, manage storage, plug in a printer, and actually troubleshoot it. This was the generation that became their family's unofficial tech support. They weren't just familiar, they were fluent. Now, jump to today's kids. Late Gen Z and Alpha were born with an iPad in their hands and YouTube auto playing in the background. They're digital natives, right? That term sounds cute until you realize some never touched a file explorer in their life. They know how to screen record, sure, but ask them to troubleshoot a Wi-Fi problem, they'll just restart the router and pray to Steve Jobs for help. Boomers fix the cars themselves, millennials take it to the mechanic, and Gen Alpha expects the car to drive itself. See, their world is app-based, it's locked down, user-friendly, and kind of idiot-proof at this point, which sounds good until something breaks. Clicking on weird links in LimeWire isn't much of a thing anymore, and knowing which download button was the real one on some sketchy website is what made millennials strong. When everything is seamless and abstracted, there's no need to understand what's under the hood. You just use it. And I'm not even trying to clown the youth, it's not their fault. The systems we use now are designed to hide the complexity, which means this whole new generation might be digitally fluent, but not computer literate. Also, many younger people just do things on their phone on an app as opposed to going on the computer. The Washington Post in an article from last year states that Gen Z's typing proficiency is reportedly dwindling as young people adapt to touchscreens, with keyboarding falling to the wayside, just like writing in cursive. The Wall Street Journal reported that some high schoolers are more adept to typing on their iPads, with one 18-year-old writing an 8-page paper on one, or smartphones rather than a traditional keyboard. But so what, right? Who cares if someone doesn't know how to defrag a hard drive or find their downloads folder? Well, turns out a lot rides on basic computer literacy, because once you stop understanding the tools you're using, you're not just a passive user, you're vulnerable. Let's start with scams, phishing emails, fake pop-ups, sketchy download links. These aren't just boomer problems. If you don't know what's normal or what files should exist where, you can't tell when something's off. You just click, and that's when you end up giving your banking info to a Windows security alert. Then there's creativity and control. Back in the day, if you wanted a song on your iPod, you had to rip it from a CD, convert it, organize it, then sync the iPod with iTunes. Want a cool website? You opened Notepad and built it from scratch. Now, everything's template-based. Algorithms are curated and disposable. The skill ceiling is way lower because the systems don't encourage you to go deeper. But that doesn't necessarily mean the end results are worse, and I want to make sure that I emphasize that point. Computer literacy was never just about knowing computers. It was about understanding systems, being able to do basic troubleshooting. It was about being curious, being resourceful. Without that, we're not users anymore. We're just consumers. In the year of our Lord 2025, everyone should know what Wi-Fi is, or how to make sure that all the cables in the computer are plugged in, or know what an internet browser is, or maybe where to find your emails. Many baby boomers have had computers for 20 plus years, yet still are confused on how it works. Now, I will say the adoption rate of technology for the older generation has grown. According to a study by the Pew Research Center, millennials have often led older Americans in their adoption and use of technology, and this largely holds true today, but there's been a significant growth in tech adaptation since 2012 among older generations, particularly Gen Xers and baby boomers, but it's still in the vein of superficial understanding. So yeah, turns out computer literacy isn't universal. It's a weird little generational pocket that got just enough exposure before everything got dumbed down, but after it stopped being terrifying. If you're one of those people who knows what a zip file is, who's editing a config file, or who's ever opened Task Manager just to feel in control, you are a rare and dying breed. Respect. Because as systems get simpler on the surface, they get more complex underneath, and if nobody knows how they work, we're just hoping nothing breaks. With the growth of AI, we just have to talk to the computer or click a button for it to do the thing we want it to do. And once again, times change. There's nothing wrong with this. For the most part, it's just an observation. But maybe, just maybe, instead of letting actual digital literacy fade out like it's cursive handwriting, we should bring it back. Teach kids how to use file systems. Teach adults how to not install 5 antivirus programs at the same time. Start a grassroots don't click the sketchy link movement. Or don't, but when your smart fridge gets hacked and starts mining crypto, don't say I didn't warn you. Thanks for watching this video. We have a couple other videos on the channel right now that you can go ahead and watch right now. So why don't you go ahead and do that? You can click on this video right here and I'll take you to another video, or you can click this video over here and I'll take you to a different video, slightly different video. They're 2 different videos. Either one. Click one of them. Okay, bye.